Hi, I'm Adrian from Zanza's Toys, and today we're going to be talking about how I made a replacement part for this. So, a friend of mine came to me with a problem. Their daughter has a game that she really loves. It's a wonderful game. It's very popular. I won't use the actual name, but it has to do with guessing, and is a wonderful logical reasoning and deductive game for kids or anybody really. It's wonderful, and it has a lot of pieces like this that can be flipped up or down and contain a piece of cardstock. So this is an intact piece, but several of these pieces on their game board had broken. And my friend asked me if I could 3D print a replacement. And never one to shy away from a challenge, especially one that helps teach good reasoning skills to kids while having a great time. I said, sure. So, but this piece is actually a little bit tricky and ended up being a pretty fun project. So let's talk about why this is a hard thing to 3D print. Okay, so here's the part we want to recreate. And it may seem simple, and it's certainly a mass-produced, fairly inexpensive part, but modern manufacturing really is amazing, and it's easy to take for granted. So let's think about how we might 3D print this. Like every form of manufacturing, big or small, there are always trade-offs, right? So this, like pretty much every other mass-produced piece of plastic, was almost certainly injection molded, and you can see that there's some. They're a little hard to see in this lighting, but you'll see these kind of slightly circular slight indentations, and that's a dead giveaway that this was injection molded. That's where the pins press against the part after it's been molded to eject it. So they push it out of the mold. And that's great. You can get really detailed shapes and very inexpensively. But that's an entirely different ball of wax than 3D printing. So if you want to 3D print a thing, the first thing you have to think about, at least the first thing I like to think about, is what surface is going to be on the bed of the printer. So there's two good candidates here. So I could print, we don't want to print it like this, right? So if we print it with this surface here on the bed, we'd be printing it upright like that. And that would be a very weak part indeed. And similarly, this would be even worse, right? Because we'd have all the same problems of printing it. It would, tall, thin parts tend to be really wobbly, and you get a lot of inaccuracy. But we'd also have a rounded part at the bottom, so that doesn't give us any good base, right? So theoretically, we could have a ton of support, but that would be really inefficient and probably would lead to kind of a bad result anyway. So we know this surface is out and this surface is out. So printing it like this is much better. That's a lot more promising, right? Because we've got, it's not very tall, so it's not going to be wobbly. So that's probably what we want to do, but there's some difficulties with that too. So I'm just going to hide this half. And if we only look at this half, this is actually a really good candidate for printing with this surface on the bed. So if we think about how the layers will get laid down, going from here up, we see we don't really have much of an overhang. There is a little bit right here to clip onto an axle, but that's pretty much within tolerance. You can get away with a little bit of an overhang with 3D printing, and that would probably be fine. So that's all fine, right? But what happens if we look at this edge, or this side rather? So here we have this tab that goes down. So that's not going to work. And there's also some added there's an added problem in that if we look at these crossbars, we see that they're indented here and here on this side, and here on the other side. And the reason being is that a piece of cardboard sort of slots in between, and that's what keeps the cardboard in place. So you can bridge across. So if we printed these two, printed like this, right? We'd have these walls just fine. So this edge and this edge would print great. But when it came time to bridge across here, this would be floating in space, right? You can get away with bridging to some extent, but this is a pretty far gap to bridge across. So probably not going to work that well. So, and if we print with this surface down on the bed, right, this would have to be underneath the bed. Similarly, if we print with this surface down, we'd have from there down underneath the bed. So what I'm going to try is printing this in two parts. I'm going to split it effectively right along here and print part of it with this surface flat on the bed and the other part with this surface flat on the bed. And that should give us something that'll print really quick and print really well and give us all the features we really need, meaning that we'll be able to snap onto the cylindrical axle. We'll have this tab for flipping up and down, and we'll have a lowered portion here and here on this side and a lowered portion there on this side. So let's get to it. Okay, so here I am in FreeCAD. I started out by making a sketch of the cross-section of the cylindrical part that would clip onto the axle. You can see the little bits to hold the axle. Then I padded it to make it three-dimensional. I added a pocket to take a chunk out. Then I added the main flat bit, and with another sketch, I put some holes in it. Then I took some more additional chunks out of the main cylinder to bring it in line with the part as it exists. And that's pretty much it for what I'm calling the bottom. Next up was the other half. So here it is all done, but I started out by making another sketch. It would fit just perfectly with the first part and give me the overall shape I wanted. And I extruded that out, padded it, and added a hole. Then I added another sketch and added the pull tab. And then finally, just a little fillet to make it nice. There I had both pieces, each of which would print nicely and fit together to give me the total part that I was going for. Okay, so now I've got the two parts printed. I did print with support for the sake of this, but it's pretty easy to remove, so let's just do that real quick. There we go. And I'm just going to give it a quick once over, see if there's any strings that need to be trimmed. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's give this one a check. I have been getting a little bit extra right there, but that's easy to clean off. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble. And that's really easy. All I'm gonna do is just glue these two parts together, like so. And then we'll have our finished part. So I'm gonna get my trusty super glue, and just put a little bead right along here and along there. Just using the side of the tip to kind of spread it out a little bit. And I'm going to put these two things together. And that's pretty much it. All that's left is to let it set up. But in order to get a better result, I'm going to use a little bit of blue tape just to hold these things together and keep them aligned as the glue sets. So let's do that. And I'm going to be careful we have nice flat surfaces here, so I'm going to use those to my advantage to kind of help the tape get things nice and aligned. And I could probably stop there, but I'm going to just be a little extra careful because it's terrible when you leave something to set up and then you come back and it's permanently bonded, but slightly misaligned, right? I'm sure that's happened to other people out there. I know it's happened to me, and I always hate it. So, okay, that's that, and I'm just gonna 2 more to be super sure that this comes out nice and aligned. And as I do this, I'm being careful not to push on the layers in an uneven way. So I'm making sure that both stay aligned as I apply the tape. And that's pretty much it. So now I'm just gonna let this set up for a bit, and we'll have our finished part. It's been a little bit, and I'm gonna take the tape off. There we go. One finished replacement part, ready for installation. So once I had everything put together, all that was left was to try it out. So I brought the pieces over to my friend's house and we snapped it in, and it fit perfectly. Oh yeah,
So I don't,
perfect.
yeah, perfect.
So that's about it. If you want to get the files for yourself and maybe fix your own copy of the game, I'll have the link below. And if you want to see more videos on toy design and toy making, toy repair, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.